what is TRE and what is TRE in relation to trauma and healing trauma?
So originally, TRE stood for or stands for tension and trauma release exercises, but I tend to personally just refer to it as TRE as its own acronym. A little bit like if you say to people, "What does DNA stand for?" They don't really know, most people, but you sort of know what DNA is. So the reason I say that is because it's not just relevant to stress release and tension release, but also like a reorganizational impulse in the body that helps our body to, rearrange tension and movement patterns. So primarily what it's based around is the deliberate activation of spontaneous shaking, trembling, full body movements, any sort of spontaneous movement in the body, because that shaking and trembling is our body's natural stress release and trauma recovery reflex. So, when we look at trauma from a movement based model, which is ultimately what our stress and trauma responses are first and foremost about creating movement or containing movement, then it makes sense that we want to restore the neuromuscular system's innate capacity to move freely, both of the body through space, but also potentially like spontaneous movements of the heart rate speeding up, or the respiratory system or the digestive system being able to move freely again. So TRE is just it's a framework. It's a modern neuroscientific framework of understanding this shaking and tremoring reflex, reframing it as a positive innate recovery resource, which is in every single human and most mammals on the planet, and then providing people with an easy way to access it, self-regulate it, so that they can then use it on an ongoing and regular basis.
That's a really interesting part, right? You look at nature, like you mentioned there. You look at animals when they go for a hunt or they're being chased. A deer, for example, when they stop, you see them do that voluntary shake, right? And I think that humans, we've become so heady. Like you look at psychology, and it's like all about the mind. It's like we're not just here above, or it's like, what's your mindset, or oops, there's my dog. It's like, what's your mindset, or what's your approach around psychology? It's like, no, the body exists as well. We exist in a whole spectrum.
If you just think about us as an organism from when we start in utero and when we get born, we don't have psychology. We've got physiology first. Psychology grows out of our physiology. So, especially like, with your dogs, many people know dogs are shaking in a thunderstorm. And what we've always done in Western societies, we say, why are they shaking? Or if my hands are shaking while I'm public speaking, or as a little kid at primary school, like, why am I shaking? It's a sign that I'm stressed or I'm anxious or I'm frightened. And you see this everywhere. Like you read children's books. I remember reading to my kids, you read The Ugly Duckling, and it gets out in the swamp and it's on its own. And it will say things like the ugly duckling was, shaking or trembling with fear. So we've all just kind of been culturally, misdirected that this shaking and tremoring response is stress or anxiety or fear, or even, for example, a panic attack. But it's none of those things, because it's so obvious that the shaking and trembling, if you're standing there and your body's shaking, that's not helping your body to fight or to flee, and it's not helping your body to freeze or fold or immobilize. So the shaking and trembling's got nothing to do with, in a way, I mean, yes, it's happening because the body has had an adrenaline surge or a stress response, but it's not part of the stress or trauma response. It's the recovery response and the way the body naturally restores itself back to homeostasis, and us and our psychology along with it.
You said something really interesting there that really stood out to me, which was psychology comes out of physiology. Was that what you said?
Yeah. So when we're babies, we don't have a
That's
cognitive mind that grows out of movement. And even if you look across, the animal and the plant kingdom, the nervous system is developed in organisms that move. And it's, that's why we've got such a huge cerebellum at the back, and it's all about movement. And so our cognition kind of grows out of the ability to move, really.
Thanks for watching this clip of the Getting Mental podcast. If you like this clip, check out the full episode here or more clips here.